With 7 Deadly Sins Origin on the horizon, I figured it would be the best time as any to take a look back at the very first home console 7 Deadly Sins game, one that many of you have probably forgotten about, one that gives Season 3 of the anime a run for its money as the worst 7 Deadly Sins piece of media. That being 7 Deadly Sins Knights of Britannia, a 3D arena fighting game that tries to do too much while accomplishing too little. A game that's heavily held back by its genre of choice, a game that promised DLC but ultimately never saw the light of day, a game that doesn't do much for fans of the source material, let alone for new fans to the franchise. This is the 7 Deadly Sins game everyone forgot about. 7 Deadly Sins Knights of Britannia was first revealed on July 1st, 2017 in an announcement trailer with seizure-inducing effects, fast-paced cuts, and very little glimpses of real gameplay. Let's chalk those editing choices up to creative liberties. Definitely no other ulterior motives here. And you know, it worked. Looking through the comments, people seem to be pretty excited. Until we saw actual gameplay. At TGS 2017, we get 4 minutes of gameplay and it looks pretty rough. Clunky controls, unpolished animations, and annoying camera, there were a lot of problems. And if you're familiar with Bandai Namco's anime games, then you would know they would not be getting fixed at all. We would get a dedicated gameplay trailer on November 20th, 2017, and the comments would be flooded with people complaining about how Season 2 of the anime wasn't out at the time yet. Thanks guys. Regardless, in the time leading up to release, fans seemed to be torn. This gameplay wasn't looking very promising. Many were hoping for an action-adventure game, a genre more fitting of the source material. Others were hoping manga content would be included, even though Season 2 hadn't aired yet. There were a lot of hopes and some bitterness going into this game's launch. But hopefully Bandai can still deliver on a great product that satisfies fans of the source material. 7 Deadly Sins Knights of Britannia will release exclusively on PS4 on January 25th, 2018 in Japan, and on February 9th in North America and Europe. It would go on to receive poor reviews with a 55 critic score and a 6.3 user score on Metacritic. There were many complaints about this game: its repetitive gameplay, lack of fan-favorite characters, a boring adventure mode, and odd story choices. This game was deeply flawed and clearly didn't perform very well. DLC was apparently planned but was ultimately scrapped. But was this game really that bad? Yes. As is tradition with anime games these days, 7 Deadly Sins Knights of Britannia is a 3D arena fighting game. And also as is tradition, it's bad. Knights of Britannia is similar to other arena fighters like J-Stars and Jujutsu Kaisen Cursed Clash, with 2v2 battles in large destructible environments. And just like those games, the gameplay here is bogged down by an annoying camera and clunky controls. Playing this game does not feel good at all. Your basic movement is incredibly stiff, even just running around doesn't feel very good, because making precise movements is next to impossible. You can perform a search dash, which is supposed to dash directly at your opponent, but just misses half the time. You can also perform side steps, but for some reason, the input is R1 plus left stick, which might not sound bad, but R1 is the button to activate magic attacks. Normally, a sidestep would be your guard button plus left stick, but guard in this game is L1, so why is sidestep not L1 plus left stick? I know this sounds like I'm overreacting, which, I mean, I am, but I think it's a pretty clear indicator of this game's quality that they couldn't even get the inputs right. Combat is no better. You have light and heavy attacks, a ranged attack, 3 magic attacks, and a super attack. You can kind of perform combos mixing in light attacks, heavy attacks, and magic attacks, but there isn't much room to experiment here. The ideal way to play this game is quite literally by just spamming the same combination of moves over and over. Essentially, you have this move called the Mirage Step, which, granted, does consume magic, but your magic does also just randomly fill to full throughout the match, so trust me, it won't be a problem. The Mirage Step allows you to teleport directly behind your opponent, bypassing their guard. The strategy here is to spam Mirage Steps, perform a simple combo by spamming light or heavy attacks, and then once your special move meter is full, use it, and then you win. I use this strategy in all of my matches, and it worked out pretty easily. Moving on, we have the camera controls. Since we have large arenas and 2v2 battles, you can control your camera or simply lock onto a target. You're going to be wanting to constantly lock onto your enemy, or else it'll be pretty easy to lose track of them, and you won't be able to aim your attacks very well. The problem is, the locked on camera suffers from a little problem I like to call stupidity. This thing loses control all the damn time, flying around to the most unoptimal angles, throwing walls and debris in your face. It sucks, plain and simple. In those 2v2 battles, with the real person, I'm sure it's fine. I didn't get to test it with anyone though, because all my friends have a very strict no 7 Deadly Sins Knights of Britannia policy, but with a CPU, it just makes no sense. You're able to call for a team-up attack that when activated, if you and your teammate deal enough damage before the meter runs out, and you get to deal a devastating team-up attack. But the key here is both players need to agree to it. With a real teammate, that makes sense. They might be too busy focusing on another enemy to agree. What annoys me is that CPU with teammates can also ignore your call. Why? It's a CPU opponent. It should do whatever the I want it to. In the adventure mode, the likelihood of a teammate going through is tied to your likability meter, which is dumb. It's not more immersive, it's just annoying. This gameplay is not fun. It is mind-numbing, easily exploitative, annoying to control, and full of stupid gimmicks. I still have no idea why this game had to be an arena fighter. That's just a hyperbole to make my writing sound better. I actually do know why. It's because Bandai Namco is stupid and likes to make cheap arena fighting games. An action-adventure game would have fit the source material so much better, and it seems that developers realize that, because this game's adventure mode is full of RPG elements and additional unique gameplay segments. The adventure mode here covers season 1 of the anime. Now, one of the big complaints about this game was that it would only be covering season 1, nothing further, seeing as season 2 hadn't begun airing yet. However, free updates were released post-launch alongside the airing of season 2 with multiple additional quests. However, only one new character was included, Zeldris. None of the other 10 commandments ever became playable, despite appearing in the bonus quests. Thanks, Bandai. There's a rumor floating around out there that there was supposed to be additional paid DLC, which would have introduced the rest of the 10 commandments as playable characters, but if it was actually in development, then it got canned. I sure do wonder why. Enough dilly-dallying, let's get to the real meat and potatoes of the story mode. The story mode is told through somewhat animated cutscenes. It's usually just the models of the characters standing around with minimal movement. It's better than screenshots from the anime though, I'll give it that. The part that I don't like about this game's storytelling though, is that there are some story moments that are relegated to simply text and character portraits, such as when Meliodas pulls out Gilthunder's sword. There are also these moments in passing which are supposed to show the banter between the cast, but some of it involves, let's just say, physical humor, and yet we only see it described via dialogue, so it comes across as really weird. As for the way the gameplay is handled here, it's not much better. Most of your battles are going to be the normal standard 1v1s or 2v2s, which we've already established are boring and repetitive. They do try and shake up things every now and then, but you can tell they didn't have a lot of additional resources, so every gameplay change feels half-baked. Their quests where you play as Elizabeth, which are quite literally called fetch quests. Very subtle, guys. In this, you literally just run around an arena and press a button a couple of times to pick up items. It's boring as all hell. There are battles where you have to face off against tens of enemies, which might sound cool, but it's not. It's somewhat similar to a Musou game, except the game clearly isn't designed to play like that. The clunky controls make it difficult to hit multiple enemies, and it's never satisfying to mow down hordes of enemies like it is in your standard Musou game. But the thing that annoys me the most about these stages is that each enemy type only has one dying sound effect, and it plays every single time you defeat one of them. There are 20 plus enemies per round, so you'll be hearing the same grating voice clip playing back to back over and over. There are some kaiju missions where you play as Diane, which are similar to the Musou segments. This game clearly wasn't designed to be played as a giant kaiju, so the controls are really wonky and annoying to pilot. Gameplay aside, the rest of the adventure kinda chalks up to nothing. You can traverse across an overworld map, but who cares? There are relationship meters and gossip points, but who cares? There are items to craft which give you like some subtle upgrades in battle, but who cares? All of these elements and gameplay shakeups are all set against the backdrop of that awful arena fighter gameplay. I can tell the developers wanted to make something more, but was ultimately held back by the fact that they had to make an arena fighter. Presentation-wise, I'm honestly kind of torn. I'm gonna be honest, I quite like how the stages and character models look. They're surprisingly high quality, and the environments for the most part look pretty good. That being said, the animations are kind of terrible. Like I said before, the cutscenes are incredibly stiff, and during gameplay is no better. The ultimate attacks look fine, but are really nothing special. But I think the worst part of this game's presentation has to be its god-awful opening cutscene. In most of these poorly received anime games like One Punch Man, A Hero Nobody Knows, and Jump Force, their opening cutscenes are usually the best part, but not here. Like, what am I looking at? Seven Deadly Sins Knights of Britannia is a classic example of an anime game being held back by poor fundamental choices. The developers clearly want to do more with this game, but ultimately weren't allowed to. It should have been an adventure RPG, not an arena fighter. It should have been delayed to include season 2 of the anime instead of just updating post-launch with half-assed updates. This game, while not being the absolute worst thing in the world, is yet again another case of Bandai rushing a cheap game to simply cash in on a popular IP. They made their money while spending as little money as possible. Another classic play. Well, at least we still have 7 Deadly Sins Origins to play. At least it's not the one other common type of anime game that has just as many problems as arena fighters.